Did you know that there are divers who have seen things under the Red Sea that look like chariot wheels, pieces of iron, and bones that seem to belong to ancient soldiers? This isn't a made-up story, nor is it an urban legend. This is a new underwater exploration, and they even released footage that could possibly be connected to one of the most well-known stories in the Bible, the crossing of the Israelites and the sudden collapse of the sea that wiped out Pharaoh's army. And the question now is, if there really are chariots, wheels, and soldiers' bones under the sea, how many more miracles in the Bible are not just stories, but actually have real evidence just waiting to be discovered? In this video, we will find out the root of this. Did they really find something, and how true is it? That's what we're going to find out. But before we start, don't forget to like this video. It means a lot to us content creators. Thank you very much, and now let's get started. Recently, a group of skilled divers dove into this sea. They weren't looking for gold, nor were they chasing fame. What they were hunting for was a mystery that had been hidden for almost 3,000 years, and their main guide wasn't a map nor a legend, but the book of Exodus, the story of Moses, the parting of the sea, and Pharaoh's army that drowned when the waves returned. We already know the story. For many centuries, some said this was just a story, a metaphor, a legend, or simply a lesson in faith. But they were wrong about this. A secret mission. The mission started quietly. No news on television, no press release, no announcement at all. At midnight at the end of Nueva Beach in the Gulf of Aqaba, around late 2024, a group slowly waded into the water as the sun was rising. But this wasn't an ordinary group. They were divers. Included in the group were former Navy SEALs, elite soldiers trained for the most dangerous operations, marine engineers, experts in machines and structures used at sea, and underwater archaeology consultants, specialists who study ancient objects buried beneath the ocean, were also part of the team. And their mission was planned like a military operation, to find out if one of the oldest stories is true or just a myth that has been debated in history. They brought the most modern equipment, high-resolution sonar imaging, a type of scanner that uses sound waves to see what's under the sea, AI-assisted deep-sea drones, small underwater robots that can reach the deepest parts of the ocean, and multi-spectrum sediment scanners, machines that can look beneath sand and rocks. They're not just looking for shapes, they're searching for patterns, anomalies, and possible traces of war that have already been swallowed by the sea. But before they could even get into the water, the mission was immediately hit by problems. Several countries issued serious warnings. Some said it was dangerous, some said it was illegal, and some said the place, which is important to culture and history, might be damaged. Even some universities called the mission pseudoscience, or so-called fake science. From Egypt to Israel, there were officials who advised the team not to proceed. Some even mentioned sensitive diplomatic concerns. But even though many opposed, there was a force that pushed the mission to continue, and that force was faith and funding. Some wealthy private backers quietly came in. They weren't investors looking to profit. They weren't after recognition. They were believers and convinced the mission had a deeper purpose. That's why the expedition was born out of whispers, in secret, and under the radar. But like all secrets, it didn't stay quiet for long. A photo leaked online. You can see the team assembling submersibles, mini research submarines with mysterious Hebrew phrases written on them. It spread across the internet like wildfire. "Back to where the Pharaoh fell" was the caption of a viral post. Within a few days, debates exploded on forums, prophecy websites, and YouTube conspiracy channels. Many asked, will there finally be proof that the book of Exodus is not just a story the world still doesn't know, but there is something deep in the sea that is about to move? The Exodus. To understand how significant the divers' discovery might be, we need to go back, not just to the year 2024, but to the very beginning of the story. the Exodus. This was the time when Moses, armed only with a staff and a command from God, led thousands of Israelites to escape from slavery in Egypt. According to the Hebrew Bible, they fled into the wilderness until they reached the edge. They were trapped, the sea ahead and Pharaoh's army behind, with no escape or hope left. But according to the scriptures, a miracle happened. The waters parted, and the Israelites walked through the middle of the sea on dry ground. This is written in Exodus 14:21 through 22. While they were being chased by Pharaoh's chariots, ancient war vehicles, the sea returned and covered the entire army. This event is the foundation of three of the world's largest religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. A story of liberation, judgment, and the direct intervention of God. But for countless generations, skeptics have had the same question. Where is the evidence? The evidence. Archaeologists have long been searching for the evidence. They scoured the entire Sinai Peninsula, a vast land between Egypt and Israel, but they found nothing. No traces of Hebrew camps, no tools, and especially no chariots. Because of this, some scholars have proposed a new idea. The Red Sea translation might be incorrect. Maybe what the ancient text refers to as the Sea of Reeds, a shallow body of water that's only about waist deep. Some say the crossing was in Galilee or the Gulf of Suez. But whatever theory they present, it really doesn't match the scale and miracle described in the Bible until a unique location emerged, the Gulf of Aqaba, near the modern city of Nueva. And this theory didn't come from universities, but from explorers, Bible researchers, and map analysts. And what they found was astonishing. Under the sea, they discovered what seemed like a natural bridge connecting the coast of Egypt to Arabia. It's wide, level, and has enough space for thousands of people to cross. Men, women, children, and even animals. It's right under the water, in the place where ancient warriors might be buried. So the question arises, is this the real crossing site? Is the miracle real and not just a symbol or a story? This theory has long been questioned. It was mocked and ignored, but everything changed suddenly in 2024. The new group of divers, equipped with the latest sonar, AI drones, and dipsy scanners, is heading straight to the coordinates long believed to be hiding a secret buried under the sea for more than 3,000 years. And that's where the story that changed many perspectives will begin. Ron Wyatt, the man who wasn't believed but also couldn't be silenced. Before there were sonar scanners, AI drones, and high-tech equipment, there was one man who first tried to uncover the secret of the Red Sea. He wasn't a scientist, he wasn't a historian, and he wasn't an archaeological expert either. His name was Ron Wyatt. He was a quiet nurse anesthetist from Tennessee, a man whose only weapon was the Bible, a compass, and a strong belief that there was something he needed to find in the middle of the desert and sea of the Middle East. For many academics, they say he was just an enthusiast or a treasure hunter, but for the thousands who believed in him, he was the first to have the courage to literally follow the story of Exodus. In 1978, Wyatt went down into the waters of the Red Sea for the very first time, and what he claimed to have seen under the sea started the biggest debate about the Exodus in modern times. According to him, there were corals wrapped around what seemed to be perfectly round shapes, structures shaped like wheels, not just one, but several pieces. There were 4-spoked wheels, 6-spoked wheels, and even 8-spoked wheels. A spoked wheel is a type of wheel with protruding metal or wood pieces, like a fan. He also said he saw things that looked like axles, as well as human bones, and horse bones. The place seemed like a frozen battlefield, an ancient battle that was buried by salt and sea for thousands of years. But not everyone accepted this right away. He didn't write an academic paper about it. There was no peer review. All he had were some blurred underwater photos, personal notes, and videos that looked like they were taken with an old and shaky camera. That's why experts quickly laughed at him. Some archaeologists said that coral can mimic almost any shape, and if you believe there's a wheel down there, that's probably what you'll see. In addition, some governments did not grant permits to retrieve or examine what he found more closely. That's why everything remains a mystery. And even so, the story didn't stop. For every one person who didn't believe, there were 10 who were amazed and inspired. His story spread through churches, prophecy books, and religious documentaries. For them, he wasn't an adventurer, but more like a witness. Someone who was called to give a voice to a miracle hidden beneath the sea. Decades went by, and others followed. Independent researchers, pastors, and divers equipped with GoPros and prayers. Every time they returned from the Gulf of Aqaba, they brought back new questions and new hope. Maybe Wyatt didn't find the whole truth, but maybe he really did see something. The coral-covered mystery. Why is there no proof of what Ron Wyatt claimed to have seen? Why was nothing brought to a museum? And why, until now, is there still no solid evidence being presented? According to Wyatt, the reason is simple. It's a mix of science and spiritual mystery. First, the coral. The Red Sea is full of life. Coral reefs grow quickly and cling to anything submerged. When metal or wood is submerged here for hundreds of years, coral covers it until it becomes like stone. In other words, the real material disappears and what remains is like a scale of its former shape. When you try to move it, it crumbles. It's like the ghost of a wheel. It's only whole because it hasn't been touched yet. Second, the law. Egypt is one of the strictest countries when it comes to their historical artifacts. Even if it's just a suspected artifact, especially if it's underwater, you can't touch it without a lot of permits and solid evidence. They say Wyatt applied several times and was rejected just as many times. Third, the golden wheel. This is the most controversial of all his stories. Wyatt said he saw a wheel that was golden in color. It was even standing under the sea. He said he reported it to the authorities and someone supposedly took it. And after that, it was gone. No picture, no report, no confirmation at all. Everyone was silent. For the critics, this was just made up. A convenient story. For those who believe it was deliberately hidden, they say it's not just imagination. The truth was just suppressed. But whatever the truth is, one thing cannot be denied. Ron Wyatt was the one who started the fire that never died. For many decades, this has been talked about over and over again. In small Bible studies, in church basements, in documentaries that are almost shown in secret. Have you ever seen anything about chariot wheels in the Red Sea? What if it's true? And now, after many years, a new team of divers has returned to the exact coordinates given by Wyatt, using modern equipment that he never got to use. And what they found could either prove Wyatt right or completely mess up his whole story. The modern-day discovery, the new discovery. The dive team in 2024 did not expect what would greet them. At first, the sea below was quiet. The sonar moved, a high-tech device that scans the seabed using sound waves. But all they saw was flat ground. Only a few coral gardens and some rock formations appeared. But slowly a pattern emerged. Not on the surface, not in the shape of the rocks, but in the shapes. There were repeating circles. There were shapes that looked like wheels. There were connectors that looked like axles, a part of a vehicle that connects the wheels. And as the deep-sea drones went deeper, more and more strange shapes appeared, until they saw something that wasn't in the plan. A glimmer, a golden flash covered by a thin layer of sand, metallic. The shine was faint. It looked old and weathered, but it was clear that it wasn't part of the coral reef. The divers went down, bringing cameras with them, and what they recorded sent chills down the spines of those in the control room. There were pieces of a chariot. There were spokes or wooden rods where wheels would go through, broken and decayed, but its shape was clear beneath the coral. There were bronze-like fittings and what appeared to be a human femur, and an equine jawbone, a horse's jaw. But what's even more surprising is the arrangement of everything. It's not scattered. It's not like they just fell anywhere. It's like a moment frozen in time, a scene of destruction frozen under the sea. One diver said it looked like a toppled object in the water. Also, it's like a graveyard of warriors. The body parts and chariots are all facing the same direction. It's as if they were running or charging together. Parts of the wooden axle suddenly broke. Spokes were torn apart, and bones looked as if thrown by great force. That's when the team began questioning. Was this a battle in ancient times? Or was this the destruction of an army struck not by swords, but by a divine force? The scientists don't want to make a statement, but the shape doesn't lie. This place matches what the scripture describes, and what they discovered speaks volumes, even without uttering a single word. Public shock and suppression. The secret didn't last long. Just a few weeks after the dive, short, blurry, and fragmented videos started spreading online. Footage showing what looked like a wheel covered in coral, freeze frames from diver cams, and voices that were clearly trembling with excitement and disbelief at what they were seeing. At first, it only appeared on small prophecy forums, but TikTok quickly followed, then YouTube, and that's when everything really exploded. The internet went wild, millions of people watched, full of comments quoting verses from Exodus. Different theories emerged from all over the world. Is this the evidence that many have been waiting for? Has the Red Sea finally provided proof about the miracle from the past? Someone else commented, "This isn't just archaeology. This is judgment that has turned to stone." News outlets scrambled as well. Some carefully called it a possible archaeological anomaly. Others just laughed it off. Even late-night show hosts made jokes about it. According to Greg Gottfeld, I want to get a refund for my history textbook. But after just a few days, the videos started disappearing. Some were suddenly deleted. Some accounts got suspended. Entire threads vanished from forums instantly. Some blamed copyright. Others cited national security. For most people, there was just one feeling. Someone was hiding the truth. This fueled more theories, with some claiming certain academic groups were covering it up. They said it was a media blackout from powerful governments, or maybe it was just simple fear that unproven evidence would spread. But the funny thing is, the more they tried to hide it, the more people talked about it. People went back to old footage of Wyatt. His old grainy videos are now being studied like new evidence. In university halls, the debate has returned. The professors who used to laugh at the idea are now forced to look at it again, even if they don't like it. And from there, the fire spread again. In churches across different countries, the discussion about the Exodus has come alive again. There were pastors who suddenly preached about this with renewed and intense faith. There were documentaries announced that seemed to just suddenly appear. For many, this is no longer just a story. For them, it is a revelation, something that opened the eyes of the world. The return of biblical archaeology. If you look at the story from a broader perspective, you'll notice that it's not just about the Red Sea. There's a bigger movement happening all over the world. A movement that quietly began several years ago. On the slopes of Mount Ararat, the mountain long talked about as the possible resting place of Noah's Ark, all the way to the harsh deserts near Mount Sinai, a strange revival is slowly returning. Biblical archaeology, or the search for physical evidence from the stories of the Bible. For a long time, it was called speculation. Many have said it's not scientific, that it's not serious, but now the situation is very different. Because with today's technology, it's almost possible to look into places that were once impossible to reach. There are drones that can map mountains and valleys that people can't walk through. Drones are unmanned aircraft controlled from a distance. There's AI that can analyze thousands of old documents to look for clues. AI, artificial intelligence, is technology that makes computers smart so they can analyze data. There's light detection and ranging that can see beneath thick forests. Light detection and ranging, a laser scanning system that can penetrate branches and leaves to see the ground underneath. And there's high-resolution sonar that can peek beneath the sea like a flashlight that penetrates the water. Sonar, a technology that uses sound to create a map of the seafloor. With the combination of all these, plus satellite images and digital 3D modeling, there are new things being discovered that old textbooks can no longer explain. And it's not just about the chariots. Whispers about the Ark of the Covenant are growing stronger again. The holy chest that, according to tradition, was brought to a secret chamber in Ethiopia. Ark of the Covenant, the sacred box in the Old Testament that contains the Ten Commandments. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, new fragments are emerging that contradict the old historical timeline. Dead Sea Scrolls, the oldest manuscripts of the Old Testament discovered in Israel. Around ancient Jericho, there are traces of walls that suddenly collapsed, not because of rain, not because of time, but seemingly due to a strong and simultaneous force. It's not because these things weren't seen before, but because only now have we learned to look without fear and with the use of technology to see things that have long been hidden. Now, not only scholars and historians, but also believers, explorers, technicians, and ordinary people who are afraid are taking action. People who have extra curiosity. People who ask, what if the stories in the Bible aren't just metaphors? What if they really happened? Little by little, one thing becomes clear. The gap between faith and science isn't as big as we thought, because the truth, wherever it comes from, doesn't need permission to come out. What else lies beneath? Now it's like the whole world is at a major crossroads. If what was discovered is true, if the shapes covered by coral are really what we think we saw, one question keeps coming back and screaming over and over. What else is hidden beneath the sea, desert, and mountains that we haven't discovered yet? Is it possible that the miracles we read about in the Bible are not just metaphorical stories, but real parts of history? What if the plagues that struck Egypt had a real origin? What if the manna in the wilderness was not just a myth? And what if the day that stopped in Jericho was not just figurative, but had a scientific explanation? For many years, science and faith have been painted as rivals. It's like they're always pulling away from each other. But what if they're not enemies? What if they're just different lenses, but looking at the same truth from different angles? The chariot wheels may never reach a museum and could turn to dust before anyone holds them. But that doesn't mean they have no value. In fact, it makes them even more sacred. Because there are things in this world that don't need to be touched by hand to be real. There are things that are held by the mind, by faith, and by wonder. This isn't just simple archaeology. It's about how we look at the past and at ourselves. In the end, the story is bigger than the salt of the sea and the strength of the coral. This is prophecy. This is memory. This is the meeting of ancient writings and modern technology. And if Pharaoh's wheels truly lie beneath the Red Sea, it's not just another page in the history book. It's a powerful whisper from the past, as if saying that what was written back then might have really happened. So before we end, here's the question. If the Red Sea is real, how many more miracles could be true? Was the burning bush real? Did fire really fall on Mount Carmel? And was there really a giant who was brought down by a single stone? History is silent, but it whispers something. The question is, are we ready to listen? Share your thoughts, your questions, your suspicions, your fascination in the comments section. And remember, the past is not dead. It's not buried either. It's just waiting to be rediscovered.